What if I told you that silence can become your ultimate weapon? What if the simple act of pulling away, of saying nothing, could trigger a chain of events that shifts the entire dynamic between you and a woman? Most men have no idea just how powerful this silent withdrawal can be. They mistake it for weakness or defeat, when in reality, it's a strategic move that can make a profound impact. The truth is, when you stop talking, the silence itself speaks louder than any words you could say. Let's face it, many men are terrified of silence. They believe that going quiet makes them seem detached, uninterested, or worse, weak. They think that they need to chase after a woman, beg for her attention, or explain themselves at length to keep her interested. But here's the harsh reality. All that chasing, pleading, and over-explaining only dilutes your power. Women aren't drawn to men who seek validation through constant words and actions. They're drawn to men who know their worth, men who stand their ground, even in the face of rejection. The moment you stop engaging, something incredible happens. The roles begin to reverse. A woman, even if she pretends not to notice, will start to feel the absence of your attention. Her mind will race with questions. Why hasn't he called me? Did he lose interest in me? Is he seeing someone else now? What she once took for granted, your presence, your attention, your words, is no longer a given. And in that moment, the power dynamic shifts, and she starts to wonder about you. Suddenly, the man who she might have taken for granted becomes the one she can't stop thinking about. But here's the catch. Not every woman will react the same way when you go silent. Some will chase you relentlessly, desperate to win back your attention. Others may test your boundaries, pushing your limits just to see if you'll break. And then there are the women who won't care at all. They may move on without a second thought. Those are the women who never truly valued you, and recognizing this difference is key to understanding whether she's worth your time or just a distraction. In this video, we're going to dive deep into the fascinating psychology behind a woman's response to your silence. You'll learn how to read the subtle signs that she's feeling your absence, and how to understand the deeper reasons behind her behavior. Most importantly, we'll show you how to leverage this knowledge to maintain control and never lose your power. If you've ever found yourself stuck in the exhausting cycle of chasing someone who pulls away, this is your wake-up call. Silence isn't the end. It's the start of a new game, one where you take the lead, and she starts chasing you for validation. Think about it. What happens when you stop talking to a woman? The change is powerful, especially if she's used to you always being there, always answering her calls, always texting first, or always fixing things when there's tension. Your silence becomes a loud absence, one that echoes in her mind. If she once took your attention for granted, it now feels like a luxury she can't live without. But why does this happen? The answer lies in human psychology. We all crave validation. When you're constantly there to reassure her, to provide her with attention and affection, she feels secure in your presence. But when that validation disappears, she's left with uncertainty, and uncertainty is a powerful motivator. Women, just like all of us, want to feel wanted, desired, and admired. When you step back, you remove that certainty, and suddenly she begins to chase it. She'll start to seek the very thing you stopped giving her, your validation. At first, this may seem subtle. She might comment more often on your social media posts, laughing a little too hard at your jokes, or casually bringing up shared memories in an attempt to get your attention. But as time goes on, her behavior becomes more direct. She might reach out with a random question, trying to break the silence, or ask if everything's okay between you two. These actions are her way of trying to fill the void your absence has created. It's not just about missing your texts or calls. It's about her wanting to know that she still matters to you. For many women, validation is like a mirror. It reflects their value through someone else's eyes. When you stop offering that reflection, she starts to chase it. Let's imagine a scenario. You're dating a woman who's used to you calling her every evening. One day, though, you don't call. You go silent, focusing on yourself, and stop reaching out. At first, she might think you're just busy, but after a couple of days, she starts to feel uneasy. Doubts creep in. Why isn't he calling? Did I say something wrong? Is he losing interest in me? Now she's the one sending the text messages, trying to reconnect. She might even make excuses just to keep the conversation going. This is where the shift happens. Her chasing you. It's a powerful moment because it shows that your absence has left a void she's desperate to fill. But here's the secret you need to remember. You don't fill it for her. You stay quiet. You maintain your power. And in doing so, you give her the space to pursue you, to prove that she values you, and to remind her that your attention isn't guaranteed. You've created the space for her to realize just how much she craves your validation, and that's when you truly begin to control the dynamic. Imagine the power of maintaining your silence, letting her actions unfold and reveal her true intentions. This doesn't mean you're being cold or manipulative. It's about understanding the quiet strength of giving her space. By stepping back, you create room for her to reflect on what your presence in her life truly means. When she starts chasing you, it's no longer about seeking validation. It's a realization that she values you far more than she ever thought. That moment when she chases you, it's a revelation, both for her and for you. But there's another layer to this dynamic. The moment you stop engaging, some women will test your boundaries, trying to regain control. It's not always deliberate. It's often an instinctive reaction to the sudden shift in the balance of power. Think about it. By going silent, you've disrupted the rhythm she's become accustomed to. The foundation she thought was solid is now shaken, and she begins to feel uncertain about where she stands with you. That uncertainty can make her react in ways you might not expect. Boundary testing often starts small and subtle. Imagine you've been in constant communication, texting each other regularly, but now you've decided to step back for your own growth. She might send a playful message like, "Did you lose your phone?" Or, "Wow, someone's gone quiet." These aren't just casual comments, they're tests. She's trying to see if you'll fall back into the old pattern of chasing her. Her goal is simple: to pull you back in and regain control of the situation. If these softer tests don't get the reaction she's looking for, her tactics might escalate. She could post pictures with other men, or make sly comments on social media, designed to make you feel jealous or left out. She might even casually drop hints, like mentioning someone else in her life, just to see if you'll respond. But here's the thing. This isn't really about the other men or the posts. It's all about testing your reaction. Will you crack under the pressure and reach out to her, or will you hold your ground? Let's say you've been dating a woman who's used to you replying to her texts almost instantly. One day, you decide to go silent, taking time for yourself. At first, she might send a lighthearted, "Did you lose your phone?" When you don't respond immediately, she might follow up with something more pointed, like, "Guess I'll hang out with someone who actually has time for me." This is where many men make a huge mistake. They react. They feel the need to explain themselves, to justify their silence. But in doing so, they play right into her test. By responding, you've shown her that her tactic worked, that she still holds the reins. Instead, what if you didn't react? What if you stayed calm, unbothered by her attempts to provoke you? By holding your ground, you send a powerful message. You force her to confront her own behavior. She begins to realize that testing your boundaries won't work the way it used to. In that moment, she's left to decide. Will she respect your newfound independence, or will her true intentions come to light? The real lesson here is simple. When a woman tests your boundaries, it's not a sign of strength, it's a sign of insecurity. She's trying to regain control, to hold on to something she fears losing. By staying calm and composed, you show her that you're a man who values himself too much to play games, and that's what earns respect, not just from her, but from yourself. Now, let's dive deeper into a reaction that's all too common when you stop engaging: the facade of indifference. You'll often see her act like she doesn't care, like your silence doesn't affect her at all. She'll put on a brave face, pretending that everything is just fine. But the truth is, beneath that mask, she's overthinking every single thing. Every time you post something online, every time you leave her on read for a few hours, she's analyzing it. She's wondering, why hasn't he reached out? Did he meet someone new? Is he really losing interest in me? Or is this just a test? These are the questions swirling in her mind, even if she never says a word. This overthinking is a clear sign that your silence is having the desired effect. She's trying to convince herself that she's fine without you, but deep down, she's grappling with the fear that your absence means something much bigger. And this is where it gets really interesting. The more she tries to convince herself that she doesn't care, the more it consumes her. Her mind is flooded with doubts, with fears, with questions she doesn't want to admit to herself, let alone you. The reason she pretends not to care is simple. It's a defense mechanism. Vulnerability is often seen as weakness, especially when it feels like she's the one losing control. So rather than showing how much your silence hurts her, she hides it. She plays it cool, pretending she's unaffected, when in reality, every moment without your attention is eating at her. It's her way of protecting herself from the pain of rejection. But here's the irony. While she's pretending not to care, she's actually hyper-aware of every little thing you do. Every post you make, every moment you spend with someone else, every delay in responding to her, it all gets analyzed. She's looking for signs, clues, anything that can tell her what's really going on. And that's when you know your silence is working. The lesson here is powerful. Silence doesn't just speak, it echoes. It forces her to confront her own feelings, her own vulnerabilities. And in the end, that's what brings clarity to both of you. You've given her the space to reflect, and in doing so, you've made her realize just how much she values your presence in her life. Here's the truth. Most women can only hide their true feelings for so long. The more she tries to act like she doesn't care, the more glaring it becomes that she's deeply affected by your silence. It's like a storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. You've turned her world upside down, and now she's scrambling to piece together the puzzle of your behavior. Every time she tries to rationalize your absence, more questions pile up in her mind. It's an emotional labyrinth she can't escape, and she's trapped in it, whether she admits it or not. This is the subtle genius of going silent. You don't need to say a word or make grand gestures. Your absence speaks louder than anything you could say. She might try to appear aloof, like she's fine without you, but that's just the surface. Deep down, she's still wondering what's going on in your head. She's still trying to understand why you've pulled away. It's an emotional tug-of-war, one that most men don't even realize is happening. But by holding your ground and staying silent, you're forcing her to confront her own emotions. She'll overthink. She'll second-guess herself. And in the end, she'll find herself asking the very questions that will make her reach out to you, despite all her efforts to appear unaffected. Now, let's talk about a very real possibility when you stop talking to her. She might seek validation from someone else. This doesn't mean she's trying to replace you or that she's ready to move on sometimes. It's simply about patching up the bruised ego that silence can create. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If you've put yourself in a position where she feels the need to look for attention elsewhere, you might need to take a hard look at the dynamics of your connection in the first place. It's easy to assume that silence is some magical tactic that will always work, but let's get real. If your silence feels immature, inconsistent, or manipulative, it's no surprise she might turn to someone else for reassurance. Women don't want to feel like they're playing emotional games, always wondering when you'll show up again. If you've been pulling her in and out, disappearing and reappearing without explanation, then you're not just testing her patience, you're damaging the foundation of trust. And when that trust is broken, don't be surprised if she seeks comfort from someone who is giving her the security and consistency she craves. Here's the reality. Silence, when used intentionally, can be powerful. It can create space for reflection, understanding, and communication. But when it's used carelessly or as a manipulative tool, it will backfire. If you're not offering clarity, security, and mutual respect, then what do you expect? Should she just sit around waiting for breadcrumbs, hoping for a change? That's not fair to either of you. On the other hand, if you've been solid, clear, and consistent, but she still goes elsewhere for validation, that's a red flag. Some people crave attention constantly, and they'll chase it wherever they can get it. This isn't about you. It's about her inability to value herself without constant external validation. And that's not someone you want to invest your time and energy in. So here's the advice. Don't just focus on her actions, look at yours too. Be honest with yourself. Are you using silence as a form of manipulation, or are you stepping back to create space for something real? If it's the latter, her reactions will reveal her emotional maturity and character. But don't fool yourself. If she runs straight to someone else for validation, it's a wake-up call not just about her, but about the relationship dynamics you're choosing. You deserve someone who values you for who you are, not someone who needs constant attention to feel worthy. Keep your standards high, and make sure the relationship you're in is built on respect, not games. But what if she takes an even more extreme route? What if, instead of seeking validation from someone else, she disappears completely? No texts, no calls, no cryptic messages, nothing. It's like she vanishes from your life entirely, leaving you wondering if she ever cared at all. It's easy to interpret this as indifference, but the truth is far more complicated. The silence might seem like she's unaffected, but beneath the surface, there's a swirl of emotions and confusion she's trying to hide. Her disappearance could be a defense mechanism, a way to protect herself from feeling vulnerable or rejected. She's pulling away, but not because she's moved on. Rather, she's processing her feelings in a way that she's not ready to share. What you're witnessing is her attempt to regain control. It's her way of creating distance so that she can better understand the emotional impact your silence has had on her. But here's the kicker. Just because she disappears doesn't mean she's not thinking about you. In fact, she's probably doing the exact same thing you are, wondering what's going on, questioning everything, and feeling the absence in ways she didn't expect. So don't mistake her disappearance for indifference. It's just her way of coping with a situation she doesn't fully understand. When a woman disappears after you've gone silent, it's usually a sign of one of two things. Either she's truly moved on, or she's protecting herself. If it's the first, it means she'd already emotionally checked out before you stopped talking to her. Your silence didn't create the distance, it revealed it. In this case, she had probably been waiting for the right moment to leave, and your withdrawal just gave her the perfect excuse to act on it. As tough as it is to swallow, this reality hits hard. A woman who disappears because she's done wasn't all that emotionally invested to begin with. And the truth is, that's not someone you want to chase after. But more often than not, when she disappears, it's not because she's done, it's a way for her to regain control. When a woman feels like she's losing power in a relationship, her first instinct might be to pull away entirely. This isn't about being cold or indifferent. It's about emotional self-preservation. Instead of chasing after you or showing vulnerability, she retreats into silence, hoping to regain some semblance of control over the situation. It's her way of taking a step back to reassess and protect her emotions. Now, I know it's easy to get frustrated when this happens. It can feel like you're being ignored or discarded, like you don't matter anymore. But here's the key. Silence in response to silence isn't the same as indifference, it's strategy. She's likely pulling back to see if you'll be the one to break first. If you reach out to her, it confirms that her disappearance worked. She's won the emotional game. But if you don't chase her, you force her to confront the uncomfortable reality of losing you. That silence isn't a sign of apathy, it's a test of emotional strength and boundaries. It's also crucial to understand that her disappearance doesn't necessarily mean she doesn't care. In fact, it often means the opposite. When someone goes silent, they're processing emotions on the inside. She's likely reflecting on whether staying silent will protect her pride, or if reaching out will give her the clarity she needs. In these moments, patience becomes your greatest ally. Resist the urge to chase her, or try to fix things. If her silence is a test, your restraint will show her that you're not someone who can easily be manipulated or coerced into proving your worth. And if her silence is genuine indifference, then your lack of reaction will save you the emotional energy of investing in someone who doesn't truly value you. The hard truth about indifference is this: it's rarely as simple as it seems. Whether she disappears to protect herself, to regain control, or to test your commitment, the best thing you can do is stay composed. Let her actions speak for themselves and reveal her true intentions. Remember, the right people will always appreciate your presence without needing to manipulate you into proving your value. Here's a shocking truth that many of us are reluctant to admit. If you're constantly chasing after a woman who seeks validation from others, you're wasting your time. It's that simple. No matter how much energy you invest emotionally, if she's looking for attention from someone else as soon as you pull away, it's not about you. It's about her own insecurities. Don't fool yourself into thinking that playing the silence game will make her chase you. If she's not willing to invest in the relationship equally, don't settle for being just an option while she looks for someone else to fill the void. This might sting a little, especially if you've been caught up in the drama of chasing someone who can't fully appreciate you. But here's the bottom line. Men need to wake up. Stop letting yourself become someone's emotional roller coaster. The true power in any relationship comes from standing firm in your worth and not settling for anything less. If she can't appreciate that, then let her go. So, let's talk about it. Have you ever had a woman seek validation from someone else when you pulled away? How did you handle it? Did you fall for it? Or did you stand your ground and realize your worth? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Let's connect, share our experiences, and learn from each other's journeys. We're all in this together, and by sharing, we can grow stronger in understanding the complexities of relationships